Ma'am, you need to leave this property immediately.
Excuse me, I live here.
I got a call that you're trespassing. You match the description of a suspicious person.
Suspicious? I am the homeowner. This is my house.
Homeowner or not, you're leaving. I need to see your ID now.
I'm providing ID, but you are violating my rights in my own home.
Leave now or I will arrest you.
Officer Derek Williamson had been with the Denver Police Department for 14 years. In those 14 years, he'd accumulated 28 formal complaints. 23 of them involved black people he'd accused of trespassing, squatting, or not belonging in affluent neighborhoods. A black homeowner watering his lawn was questioned about unauthorized use of property. A black woman sitting on her own porch was told to leave because she didn't look like she lived there. A black man entering his own apartment building was detained for breaking and entering. A black family moving into their new home was surrounded by police for suspicious activity. A black retiree gardening in his yard was handcuffed for trespassing on private property that he owned. Every complaint ended the same way. Use of force review that cleared him. Community relations training he attended but dismissed. Written warnings that piled up in a file nobody acted on. Union protection that blocked any meaningful discipline. One Saturday morning in Denver, his 14-year pattern of assuming black people didn't belong in wealthy neighborhoods finally confronted someone who'd purchased her home with money she earned as a senior executive, had every document proving ownership, and wasn't going to accept being treated like a criminal on her own property. That confrontation would end Williamson's career, cost the city $3 million, and expose a department that had ignored 28 complaints over 14 years. Angela Patterson, a 52-year-old corporate vice president, was standing in her own front yard in the Wash Park neighborhood, checking her mail at the mailbox by the curb when a police car pulled up and an officer stepped out with an aggressive posture. Her house deed was inside, her driver's license in her purse on the kitchen counter, her name on the mailbox she was literally standing next to. No crime, no trespassing, no violation, just a homeowner getting her mail. But Officer Williamson saw her through a lens so warped by racial assumptions that he couldn't process a black woman in front of a Victorian home as the legitimate owner. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Hit that subscribe button. These stories expose the truth. Denver, Colorado, Wash Park, one of the city's most desirable neighborhoods with tree-lined streets, historic homes, and proximity to the park. The area attracted affluent professionals who valued the Victorian architecture and family-friendly atmosphere. Property values regularly exceeded $800,000. The neighborhood had a reputation for exclusivity, community involvement, and residents who prided themselves on knowing their neighbors. It was 10:30 a.m. on a Saturday morning, temperature 68 degrees, sunny skies. Neighbors were outside mowing lawns, washing cars, working in gardens. The smell of fresh-cut grass filled the air. Children rode bikes on the sidewalk. It was the kind of peaceful weekend morning that defined suburban life. Angela Patterson had been a corporate vice president at a major technology company for 8 years, overseeing operations for the Western region with a team of 200 employees reporting to her. She'd graduated from Spelman College, then earned her MBA from Stanford. She'd worked her way up from entry-level analyst to director to vice president over a 25-year career. She managed a $150 million budget, traveled internationally for business, and was considered a rising candidate for C-suite positions. She'd been featured in Fortune magazine's Most Powerful Women in Business issue. She earned a high six-figure salary. She'd purchased her Wash Park Victorian home 6 years ago for $750,000, renovated it extensively, and it was now worth over $1.2 million. She'd put down $250,000 cash and paid her mortgage faithfully every month. She'd planted the garden herself, restored the original hardwood floors, repainted the exterior in historically accurate colors. She knew her neighbors. She hosted the neighborhood book club. She'd lived there for 6 years without incident. That morning, Angela was enjoying her Saturday routine. She'd made coffee, read the paper, and walked out to get her mail from the box at the curb. She was wearing jeans and a college sweatshirt, casual weekend clothes. Her hair was in a ponytail. She had no shoes on, just socks, because she was in her own yard and hadn't planned to go farther than the mailbox. She pulled out several envelopes, utility bills, a magazine, some advertising circulars, when she heard a car door slam and a voice behind her. Do you think officers should verify property ownership before confronting homeowners? Drop your answer below. Officer Derek Williamson had those 28 complaints over 14 years. 23 involved black people in affluent neighborhoods. a pattern so clear that multiple supervisors had recommended his termination, but the police union had successfully blocked every attempt at discipline. His personnel file contained documentation of racial bias complaints dating back to his second year on the force. Internal Affairs had flagged him as a high-risk officer. Community leaders had complained about him specifically at city council meetings. Yet he remained on patrol with full arrest authority because the system protected him. That morning, Williamson was patrolling Wash Park when he received a call about suspicious activity. Someone who didn't belong was acting suspiciously in front of a house on South Downing Street. The caller, a neighbor who'd lived in the area for 3 months, had reported seeing a black woman going through a mailbox. Williamson arrived within minutes, saw Angela standing barefoot in the yard holding mail, and immediately assumed she was trespassing. "Ma'am, you need to vacate these premises immediately." Angela turned, confused and startled. "Vacate? This is my house. I live here. I have a report that someone is trespassing in this residence." Angela looked down at the mail in her hands, her name clearly visible on every envelope. "Trespassing? I own this house. I've lived here for 6 years. I'm getting my mail. Can you prove that?" Angela felt frustration rising but kept her voice controlled. "Can I prove I own my own house? I'm standing in my own yard. My name is on the mailbox. My name is on this mail. My house key is inside. My driver's license is inside. Everything I own is inside this house that I bought 6 years ago. I need to see identification and proof of ownership." "Officer, I just told you everything is inside. I walked out to get my mail. I didn't bring my purse to my mailbox in my own yard." "Then I'm going to need you to leave the property until we can verify ownership." Angela couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Leave my own property? This is my house. I own it. Look at the mail in my hands. Every single piece has my name and this address." "Mail doesn't prove you live here. You could have stolen it." "Stolen mail from my own mailbox? Officer, what is your name?" Williamson pointed to his nameplate. "Officer Williamson, and I need you to step away from this property right now." "Officer Williamson, I'm Angela Patterson. I'm a vice president at Tech Corp. I own this house. I've lived here for 6 years. My neighbors know me. You can verify everything with property records. I'm not leaving my own property." "Ma'am, final warning. Leave the property or you're under arrest." "Under arrest for standing in my own yard? Should officers face termination for arresting homeowners on their own property? Let me know what you think." A neighbor walking his dog stopped on the sidewalk. "Officer, that's Angela. She lives here. She's owned this house for years." Williamson ignored him. "Ma'am, put down the mail and put your hands behind your back." "This is insane. I'm calling my attorney." Angela pulled out her phone from her pocket. "Put the phone down. You're under arrest for trespassing and obstruction." "Obstruction of what? I'm standing in my own yard." Williamson grabbed Angela's wrist and pulled her arm behind her back, the mail scattering on the grass. Angela didn't resist, but spoke clearly. "I am not resisting. I am Angela Patterson. I own this house. I've lived here for 6 years. Officer Williamson is arresting me in my own front yard for getting my mail. This is my property. I have witnesses." The neighbor was already on his phone calling other neighbors. "Someone call Angela's lawyer. The police are arresting her in her own yard." Williamson handcuffed Angela, the metal tight on her wrists. He walked her toward his patrol car while she continued speaking. "I'm a corporate vice president. I own this home. I purchased it 6 years ago for $750,000. My mortgage is with Wells Fargo. Property records are public. This officer is arresting me for being black in my own yard." More neighbors were coming outside now, several, recognizing what was happening. "That's Angela's house," one shouted. "She lives there," another confirmed. "This is wrong," a third yelled. One neighbor ran inside to get Angela's spare key that she'd given them for emergencies. Another was filming on their phone. Williamson placed Angela in the back of his patrol car. Through the window, she could see her mail scattered on her lawn, her front door standing open where she'd left it, neighbors gathering in shock and anger. She was barefoot, in casual clothes, being arrested for getting mail at the house she owned. The absurdity was overwhelming, but the humiliation was worse. The drive to the station took 15 minutes. Angela spent it thinking about her career, her reputation, the headlines this would create, the lawsuit she would file. They arrived at Denver PD's District 3 station. Williamson walked her inside, still handcuffed and barefoot, past a desk sergeant who looked up with immediate concern. "Williamson, what's the situation?" "Trespassing suspect from Wash Park. Refused to leave the property." The sergeant frowned. "Trespassing where?" "Residential property on South Downing. She was going through the mailbox." Angela spoke up, her executive voice cutting through the room with authority. "Sergeant, I'm Angela Patterson, Vice President at Tech Corp. I own the house at 847 South Downing Street. I purchased it 6 years ago for $750,000. I was getting my mail from my own mailbox in my own yard when Officer Williamson arrested me for trespassing on my own property. I have neighbors who can verify I'm the owner. Property records are public. This arrest is unlawful and frankly absurd." The sergeant's expression changed immediately. "Ma'am, you own the house?" "For 6 years. I can provide the deed, mortgage statements, property tax records, utility bills in my name, mail with my name and address, which is currently scattered on my lawn where Officer Williamson made me drop it. I have neighbors who know me. I host the neighborhood book club. I've lived there without incident for 6 years." The sergeant looked at Williamson. "Did you verify property ownership?" She couldn't provide ID. "Because my ID is in my purse inside my house. I was getting mail from my mailbox. I didn't bring my purse to my own curb." "Did you check with neighbors? Look at property records? Contact the homeowner?" "I am the homeowner." Within minutes, a supervisor arrived, Captain Lisa Martinez, a 20-year veteran who'd been tracking Williamson's complaints and recommending his termination for years. She listened to the situation, called the neighbors who'd witnessed the arrest, pulled up Denver property records online showing Angela Patterson as the owner since 2017, and reviewed the body camera footage showing Angela standing in her yard holding mail with her name on it. She approached Angela, who was still handcuffed and barefoot in an interview room. "Ms. Patterson, I'm Captain Martinez. This arrest was completely unjustified. You're being released immediately with our profound apologies. This should never have happened." She turned to Williamson with barely controlled fury. "You arrested a homeowner in her own yard for getting mail from her own mailbox. Property records show she's owned the house for 6 years. Neighbors confirm it. The mail had her name on it. You had 0 probable cause. Badge and weapon. You're done." Williamson protested. "Captain, I was responding to a trespassing call." "You arrested a woman standing barefoot in her own yard, holding her own mail. You didn't verify ownership. You ignored neighbors who vouched for her. You've generated 28 complaints in 14 years, 23 involving black people in affluent neighborhoods who were exactly where they belonged. Your career is over. Badge, weapon, now." By that afternoon, the story was spreading rapidly. TechCorp's CEO issued a statement supporting Angela and condemning the arrest. The Denver NAACP demanded immediate action. Local news covered it extensively with footage from neighbors showing Angela being handcuffed in her yard. Video went viral on social media. A barefoot black woman being arrested while getting mail from her own mailbox at her own house. Angela filed a comprehensive lawsuit 4 months later against Officer Derek Williamson, his supervisors who'd ignored 28 complaints, and Denver PD. The allegations were extensive: false arrest without probable cause, false imprisonment, trespassing on her property by Williamson, violation of Fourth Amendment rights, racial profiling and discrimination, violation of property rights, intentional infliction of emotional distress, deliberate indifference to Williamson's documented pattern of bias, failure to train and supervise despite repeated warnings. The complaint included Williamson's complete record: 28 complaints over 14 years, 23 involving black people in affluent neighborhoods, multiple supervisor recommendations for termination that were blocked by union protection. Denver's city attorneys reviewed the evidence and found no defensible position. Property records proved 6 years of ownership. Neighbors testified she was a respected member of the community. Video showed her barefoot in casual clothes getting mail. The mail itself had her name on it. Williamson had made no attempt to verify ownership despite multiple opportunities. The pattern of complaints showed deliberate indifference rising to municipal liability. The optics of a barefoot executive arrested in her own yard were devastating. The city settled 18 months later, $3 million paid to Angela Patterson, one of the largest settlements in Denver history for a property-related civil rights violation. Officer Derek Williamson was terminated 7 weeks after the incident. The termination letter was unambiguous. Officer Williamson arrested a homeowner in her own yard for collecting mail from her own mailbox. He had no probable cause. He ignored property records, neighbor verification, and physical evidence of ownership. His pattern of similar conduct over 14 years demonstrates an inability to serve without racial bias. Employment terminated immediately. Williamson's name entered the National Decertification Index. His 14-year career ended. Angela testified before Denver City Council, bringing both personal pain and professional composure. I'm a corporate vice president. I manage 200 employees. I oversee a $150 million budget. I own a home I purchased for $750,000 and renovated myself. And I was arrested barefoot in my own yard for getting my mail. Officer Williamson saw a black woman in front of a nice house and couldn't conceive that I might own it. She paused, her voice steady but emotional. 28 complaints in 14 years. 23 involving black people in wealthy neighborhoods. That's not policing. That's enforcing segregation with a badge. Your department documented the pattern, supervisors recommended termination, and the union blocked discipline. I paid the price for that failure. But I had resources to fight back. How many others didn't? She continued. $3 million is what taxpayers paid because you tolerated Derek Williamson for 14 years. But money doesn't undo being handcuffed barefoot in front of my neighbors. It doesn't erase seeing my mail scattered on the lawn I planted myself. And it doesn't restore the sense of safety I should feel in the home I own. Denver PD implemented comprehensive reforms, mandatory property verification before any trespassing arrest, automatic investigation triggered by 3 similar complaints, body camera review for all property-related encounters, prohibition on arrests without verified complaints from actual property owners, community partnership programs, supervisory accountability for ignoring complaint patterns, elimination of union contract provisions, blocking discipline for civil rights violations. Why do departments wait for 28 complaints instead of 3? Comment your thoughts. This wasn't about one Saturday morning in Wash Park. This was about tolerating Derek Williamson for 14 years, despite 28 complaints showing he couldn't accept black people in affluent neighborhoods. Angela Patterson paid the price, a successful executive arrested barefoot in her own yard. Williamson's career is over. The city paid $3 million. But that came after 14 years of warnings, multiple termination recommendations, and a system that protected him until the victim was too prominent to ignore. Angela's neighbors rallied around her after the incident, organizing a community event in her honor and publicly apologizing for not doing more to stop the pattern of harassment they'd witnessed in their neighborhood. The neighbor who'd called 911, embarrassed and remorseful, sold their house and moved away within 6 months. The case became a teaching example in real estate law courses about the intersection of property rights and racial profiling. Civil rights organizations cite it as evidence that homeownership doesn't protect black people from being treated as trespassers in their own neighborhoods. Comment if 3 similar complaints should trigger automatic termination regardless of union protection. Comment if callers who make false reports should face consequences. Comment if property ownership should be verified before any trespassing arrest. And if you believe these stories matter, if you think someone should be able to get their mail without being arrested, if you believe 14 years of complaints represents catastrophic failure of supervision, then hit that subscribe button. We're exposing departments that ignore documented patterns of racial profiling. We're demanding accountability for systems that protect bad officers over protecting homeowners' rights. This isn't about one officer or one executive. It's about a system so broken that a black woman can't stand barefoot in her own yard getting her own mail without being arrested, and about the 14 years of warnings that were ignored before it happened.